Well, I'll tell you what. There's just 26 days until Christmas, and you guys.
Shit.
Uh,
That came
this
quickly.
this past weekend was. Can you hear me? Yeah. Jason, can I hear you?
Jason, you need to unmute yourself.
I can hear Meg.
This censorship needs to stop. I was doing all kinds of hilarious stuff over that intro because it was letting me talk for the first time, and I was muted.
I was. Mike says I was talking through the intro.
Yeah, you were. And
what a mess.
Yeah, I was thinking "Who Wants to Live Forever" by Queen because we were in there so long. I saw my kids grow old, and I didn't get any older, but everyone else did.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have to explain this ridiculous background I have here, and it's all this guy's fault right here. It's this guy's fault. Dominic, he made a bet, and I'm one guy to follow through with my bets. Mm-hmm. And we have a sports ball background here, and much like when I lost the bet to Sheev the Wise, and I had to live in Vader's lair for a week, I've got to put up with this ridiculous planting the flag on our home turf because Ohio State got shellacked by Michigan this past weekend. I'm still traumatized by it. It's absolutely terrible. But I will put this up for the week. Next week we'll be back to normal. We'll be back to normal. So there you go.
Why do they have Meg's flag back there? That's the Meg flag.
You just have to take it. When your team gets beat like that, you just got to take it. Hey, I've got some other fun things to talk about because we've had some a lot of fun talking about what is it? Bricks and screws.
Bricks and screws in
Star Wars.
Star Wars theory.
Yeah. Now
I say the more attention you give these people, the more oxygen and attention goes to them and not creators.
This is true.
Don't bring
but last night he took it really well, and they were having fun with it, and they had Hannah Rayside on there for a little bit, and she talked about a little thing, and I want to share something here that I shared with everybody on Discord, but I think it's a fun point to note. This is our screenshots that I took from the original trilogy. So these are all the way from the original trilogy. People have been posting the bricks, of course, from the prequels, but I had to show these because again, this is in fun. This isn't making anger at theory or anything like that. And I want to talk about that a little bit too. But I got to show these two shots. There's this one, and you can clearly see a flathead screw right here, and another flathead screw.
Vagina?
No. This is a control panel inside a fighter. So right there, you've got two flathead screws. Hannah Rayside was talking about how it's fine to use other types, but not flatheads. Specifically, she was talking about flatheads. I'm like, whoa. There are two flatheads right here. And not only that, but we've got this other one when R2 connected to the...
this is hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason has a really good explanation of this. He mentioned this on his show the other day.
I heard that. But here, not only do we have a bolt and a nut right here on the hinge, there's a rusty nut there with the bolt. I heard you laughing. Just
Sorry,
stop.
You can't say rusty nut with a straight face like that, Santa.
Oh, rusty nut Santa Claus.
But you can see flathead screw, flathead screw, flathead screw, flathead screw, flathead screw, flathead screw, flathead screw. This whole thing is mounted with flathead screws. So we've got this is of course.
All right, Santa. I'm convinced he's wrong now. You convinced me.
I just had to point it out. Like, look, this isn't new. It's common, and look, it's fun to have these things. You don't have to be mean spirited about it, or
what was lost in translation was just the articulation of when
Sure.
you see red bricks that you see everywhere. It's a little bit different than when you see giant bricks made from a Mayan temple or something. That's what he really meant, but he said it in this kind of laziest way possible, which I do all the time. So I get it, but but it is funny because he has some seriously dumb takes. So it's like I think everybody's just been waiting, like, okay, there it is. Let's get.
And who doesn't, right? Who doesn't have a dumb
take
take
all the time?
Well, Meg's smarter than all of us, so she never has dumb
I
takes.
hate her.
I've had some very, very bad takes.
So I just joined in the fun, and that's all. And there used to be a day, and this is I think when you'd see something dumb in Star Wars and you'd laugh about it and talk about how dumb it was, and now it's got to be rage and
well, now it's Disney's broke the canon,
right?
So
right, exactly. You can't just say, "Well, that was dumb." It's Star Wars. It's fun. Just have fun with it.
I mean, IG-88's head is a part of an airplane engine from a BMW airplane. It's like, if you know airplanes, which I don't, but if you do, well, that probably looks pretty stupid to you too. Just one of those things. Just gotta roll with that.
Well,
Not just that, but Naboo is basically Italy.
It is Italy.
The Serta Palace.
More than basically, right? And people go to the one place where Anakin and Padme were married, and they take photos there all the time. You can find them on social media. It's a real place.
You could just walk up to a girl and touch her back and go, sand. You can do that there. You could do that exactly. It's not weird.
Except the Italian lady that you tapped on the back would look at you and go, "Che cosa?"
And I'm like,
and you'd have to kind of explain yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. Dominic just noticed Jason's name. Star Wars Jeg.
I didn't notice that until now as well.
I'm
fantastic.
Rebranding.
Yeah. Well, and people pointed out some time ago that the hilt on Luke Skywalker's saber, on the bottom of it in Empire Strikes Back, when he's pulling it, you can see the bottom of it. If you enlarge that, you can see where it's got a stamp on it from the state of New York, right? Like in lines, clearly.
Because it's a graphic. What's it called? A graphics? Graphics? I can't remember if it's flex or fex, but yeah, it's like a camera part, right? So it's
right. And they just screwed that on the bottom there and made it.
I've got another one for you. In Attack of the Clones, Boba Fett is actually a Daniel Logan.
What? When Attack of the Clones came out, my own story on this is me and my buddy Chris got our first apartment together. It was like 22, and we went to IKEA the week of Attack of the Clones, and we bought silverware and all that kind of stuff, and we got these like clear silverware with like little like white, like little bubbles in it. Just a stupid thing. We go to see Attack of the Clones that week, and the clones are sitting there chomping down with the IKEA silverware. Like you could just see it. They just even the little bowls, all of it was from IKEA. So
his entire life sounds like a 90s Jack Black movie.
Yeah. Sad.
Well, and people pointed out other things that you can find in real world throughout Star Wars. And so, does it take you out when you see things filmed like where you live? Someplace you've actually been, and you're like, whoa, I've actually been to that place. Or I think, like Sheev the Wise, a lot of the things that he saw in Mando season 2, the Boba Fett arc specifically, when the Razor Crest was blown up, that was filmed near his home. He's like, it's kind of weird to see that. Like,
I've been to all of those sets. None of it looks real to me now. Like having done all of the Mando sets and that kind of stuff, I see it and I'm like, yeah, I know what that is. I kind of ruined it for myself, but yeah, I mean, it's all, I don't know. People take things a little bit too seriously. I've been guilty of it too, though.
Exactly, and me too. And so sometimes I get triggered over things, and the one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's when I get kind of off my point as well, is look, Star Wars fans don't really care so much about somebody stepped on my toes, now I'm mad at them, or somebody said this mean thing and now grr, right? They don't care. They want to talk about Star Wars. They would like to talk about what's going on. They don't really care that Kathleen Kennedy did or said something, or didn't say or do something. They don't care.
Really?
The vast the vast majority of Star Wars
I
fans
don't know who she is.
yeah, not only that, but they're not engaged in YouTube. They're not engaged in the social media side of the fandom. They just watch the movies and love them. They watch the shows and have fun.
That's true.
And we kind of get pinpoint laser focused on this stuff. And Meg, great video today, by the way. Just fantastic video
thank
today.
you.
Because again, you kind of touched on this as well, right? With Boba Fett, right? And all the Boba Fett stands who got really upset about Boba Fett. It's like, well, most people like, yeah, Boba Fett fell in a Sarlacc. Who cares? Like, whatever, right? They just whatever. And so they watch the Book of Boba Fett, and it's like, oh, that was fun. And on they move with their lives. And they don't have to stay awake at night because the Boba Fett in the Book of Boba Fett doesn't match this comic book they read in 1997.
The perfect canon has been destroyed.
Right.
I do.
And Meg, you've talked about this comic series that you read. It was so much better than what we got, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Blood Ties. It's a collection of Legends comics from Boba Fett's childhood all the way to his escape in the Sarlacc.
Oh.
It's more sensitive to Boba's emotions growing up and trying to navigate the galaxy as a clone. And then, of course, Jodo Kast, who stole his identity. That's a very fun story.
More sensitive to Boba's emotions, much like Boba was more sensitive to the Rancor's emotions. They're sensitive beings.
Very similar.
They just want to hug.
I feel like Book of Boba tried to move on from Django quite quickly. I feel as though those flashbacks at the beginning were just led to nowhere.
Right.
But he touches the glass. And he's like, Daddy, Daddy.
Right.
Exactly.
I think sometimes we just need to check ourselves and get back to the fun of it, right? Laugh at the silliness when it's stupid. Just, and move on. We don't have to focus on it so much and get all bent out of shape like a bent nail that you can't drive. I don't know. I tried. It was terrible. I'm sorry. That was terrible. So I do want to talk about the hero's journey as it relates to Andor, Cassian, and season 1 of Andor. And where are we in the hero's journey? Does the hero's journey apply? What do you guys think? And we can go through these steps. It's my premise that season 1 of Andor began the hero's journey with Cassian, and we see him on that path. Before we get into the details, what's your initial take on it?
Meg?
I personally don't think it applies. I think it might apply to someone like Luke or Din Djarin, but Andor is specifically not meant to be a hero. I think he's occupying something which the expanded universe used bounty hunters for, where they go on all of these journeys, all these spy missions. You're not really meant to see them as these great characters who have this arc and then they're perfect and then they're redeemed. I think that Cassian is always going to be imperfect until he dies in Rogue One.
Excellent.
So I don't think it's a mono. I don't think this is a monomyth story. So I don't think it necessarily applies, but I can see applying most of the steps to it and making it fit. But the very problem with the premise of the monomyth concept itself is it's so flexible and it's so malleable that you're able to make it apply to things that it shouldn't even apply to. And I think that's one of the big criticisms of Joseph Campbell, now. That's one of the things that people are like, whoa, Joseph Campbell, you can't talk about him. It's like, he did this 50 years ago. The academics have moved a bit on from it. They've improved it a bit. A lot has happened in the studies of that. But anyways, to take it back to the George Lucas realm of it all, I mean, it is there. there is the call to adventure. There is, he doesn't answer the call. There's the consequence for not answering the call. There's even all the way down to the final step of like the return. All of that stuff is there, but also some of that stuff is just not necessarily monomyth, but also basic storytelling at the same time. So, but I'm no expert, so I don't want to act like I'm an academic in that stuff. I just know a little bit about it. That's
same here, right? And I take exception with both of you. I do think that we are following the hero's journey, the 12 stages of it in chronological order. We see it happening stage by stage, and to me, it's very, very clear. And so we can talk about it. You can tell me that
convince me. I can be convinced.
Right. You can tell me I'm full of it, and that's fine. And it'll be a fun discussion. And I think this is where I agree partially that he's not going to become a perfect good guy, right? He's not going to be. If you look at the other kind of outline that's put on a lot of things is like in Harry Potter, where you go through the stages of the Philosopher's Stone. It's actually a thing, right? Where you take like lead and turn it into gold, and there's a process of purification that goes through there, and it's a mythical kind of outline of a person's development or a hero or character's development through a story arc, and you see that perfectly outlined in Harry going through his life. So there are these things that can be loosely applied, or maybe the author intended or the writer intended it to happen. And I think in this case, we do see Cassian going through the 12 stages. Whether or not he actually truly fulfills, as Meg said, like becoming this perfect hero or not, I don't think so. But I do think he's following the hero's journey as it goes.
Well, the thing about like the hero's journey itself is it's not necessarily about, doesn't have to necessarily be about becoming an actualized person. And the way that it ends up in the final act, like if the hero is in if reality and the hero's ideas match up at the end, then you kind of have actualization, right? But if you don't, then you're telling a tragedy, and you could have the hero's journey in tragedy, like Anakin Skywalker. Reality and his ideals, they don't meet. So it's still the hero's journey, but it's a tragedy. That's like the big difference. And the thing about Cassian's story is when we begin, he's immature. He's still a child, even though he's physically mature and ready to get down with all of the ladies that he meets. He is not actually a man yet. And so his story is about accepting personal responsibility for those around him and his actions and what he does. And so he does in the story appear to go from being a boy to a man. So I would give it that. But I also wouldn't say.
Oh, sorry. I do see your point of view, but I don't think Cassian ever reaches that point. I think because he dies so young, he's still in that process on Scarif. I mean, yes, he's a lot more mature. He's a captain of the rebellion, but he's not where he would be if he was like in the New Republic era type of thing. Yeah.
But I think it's a big step when he brings that money, which we'll get to when we get to all of the steps. But when he brings the money back, when he returns, he doesn't return home at that point, but he gives the money. He does return, right? Does he return to bring the money back? Yeah, he gives the money to Biggs. And so he comes back with he leaves and he comes back with something that he was after. But sorry, I'm jumping ahead of the process.
Rick Jones got it. Alchemy is the word I wanted to come up with. Thank you for that. There's actually
you're a wizard, Harry. Sorry.
It's a great storytelling device to use as well. Take somebody through that purification process, and if you've not studied it, not read it, that's fine. It's an interesting thing to look into if you're interested in storytelling kind of architecture. Alchemy is a brilliant one where you see them go through their stages, and it's clear that Rowling did that with Harry all the
And
way through.
a really before I forget, a screenwriter friend of mine one time gave me a book by Truby, and it's got a guy named Truby, and is on screenwriter or something like that. And he goes through and he lays out all of the structures of popcorn films and what they are and how they kind of connect lightly, how they connect to the hero's journey, but you see it all there. And it's really good because you'll break down like The Godfather, you break down Home Alone, like all of the blockbuster movies, and you can see how the blockbuster really mined the George Lucas, Joseph Campbell hero's journey stuff. So we're checking out if you're an aspiring screenwriter and you are actually doing the work.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so I went out to this site. It's
think about Andor. Andor is Disney Star Wars is Han Solo.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree with you. Here are the 12 stages as outlined. On this website, Movie Outline took the hero journey mythic structure and just kind of set it in 12 stages. It makes it easy to read. If you don't want to go read the actual Joseph Campbell stuff, it's too academic for you. That's fine. We've got a kind of synopsized outline here that I think helps with the overall discussion.
Yeah, if you ever do read Hero of a Thousand Faces, just underline the thesis of each chapter. Look at the examples, but understand that the examples, he's just laying example after example, but his examples are kind of shit too. His examples.
Santa, please show it on screen.
No.
It's a really nice cake.
No. I was going to say, don't look. Do not look at Discord DMs. Do not do it.
I think Jason will agree.
No, Jason, don't look. I'm telling you guys, don't look.
Wow.
No, do not.
It's
very
do not.
wrinkly.
Do not show, Jason. Don't do it. I can't. No.
You got nothing to be ashamed of, Santa. I'm going to tell you that. Good on you.
Step 1, the ordinary world. This is where the hero exists before the present story begins. Obvious of the adventures to come, it's his safe place, his everyday life, where we learn crucial details about our hero, his true nature, capabilities, outlook on life, anchors the hero as a human, just like you and me, makes it easier to identify with him, hence later empathize with his plight. I think that we started off perfectly there in episode 1 of the series. You see him going about his daily activities, looking for his sister. He's gets involved in a scruff. And,
he's a shyster.
Yeah. And I think had things not gone, like had Cyril not disobeyed and gone and looked into things, Cassian would have just moved on, and that would have been a day just like any other day, and life continues. I think that's what we see where he started. That is his daily life.
Yeah.
If it involves
Luke Skywalker,
folks,
it's just I'm on a farm. I'm bored. I'm fixing treadwheel droids. I want to go out and do something else, but that's my capabilities. Is I could fly things, and I have a speeder. But Cassian's thing is but also Cassian's in the mix. That's what I think is interesting about his character in that way.
In the mix? Is that
in the mix. You know what I mean? Though, like everybody knows him. Everybody in that town knows who he is. He's a community. His mom is, which we learn later on, is a community member, and so he is in there, but he makes trouble. So he's a little troublemaker.
And I think the Meg's point,
this discussion makes me realize is Cassian isn't the only main character in his own show, and I feel as though without discussion of the other main characters, it feels very spread thin.
I think maybe with what Mega's saying, we should also jump around in the terms of the editing and look at Mothma's story parallel.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that next week. We'll take a look at that, and we can break down some of these characters. That's a really good. And not only is it Mon Mothma, but we get it with Luthen.
I mean, does Mon Mothma's even work? Is the question actually?
Right. And I think that's good. And there's been people saying that Cassian's not even the protagonist of the show, and I'm not sure I agree with that or not.
I get really mad with Star Wars fans and what a protagonist and an antagonist is. Half the times they don't know what they're talking about. Like I actually like Red Letter Media, but they say Phantom Menace has no protagonist. Padme is the protagonist of the Phantom Menace. Every checkbox is there, I think. Don't you? I mean, but
I disagree with that.
You do? So who do you think is the Phantom Menace? Like,
I mean, the factual answer to that is Anakin. Mm-hmm. He's the main character of the Phantom Menace. The actual Phantom Menace is Palpatine. But I think the story is Qui-Gon.
Mm-hmm. Because like when you started off with Padme, as she's the one with the problem. She's the one without the confidence. She's the one who can't move forward. She's the one who's not helping her people. Then she finally answers the call to action. She does leave. She does go to the Senate. She does kind of grow a pair. And then she's the one who actually organizes the plan, executes it. And there's 4 stories at the end there, which is why it's so confusing in that end battle for Phantom Menace. But I think Padme is the one who makes all of the check boxes. And Anakin, he doesn't really, I don't think he gets one. The problem is the emotional levity of that middle part when he leaves home when mom is there. And then it transfers over in Attack of the Clones. And then now Anakin's the actual protagonist.
But if Padme is the protagonist, then it's accidental because it was always meant to be about the rise of Darth Vader and this kid who comes from this slavery on Tatooine. Well,
and I think what we're saying here is that in the trilogy, that's certainly the case. The prequels, that's the case. But in Phantom Menace itself, in just the standalone movie.
Yeah, if we just isolate Phantom Menace, doesn't matter what George intended, what he says, anything like that. He made Padme. I believe he made Padme the protagonist.
Interesting. I see what you're saying.
Because Anakin doesn't do enough. He doesn't actually have enough to do in that movie. And she's the one who I think does it, but also why it's messy. It's a messy script. I love the movie, but it's messy. But yeah. Cassian, part of the problem with it though is that this is about Cassian's world. That's one of the things where I think in the narrative of Andor that a lot gets lost is like there's a lot happening in Cassian's world that it is explaining to us. And people go like he's not doing anything. He's passive in his own story. He's not passive in his own story though. I don't think. He makes some bad decisions, but it's more about his world. And I think that kind of gets lost. But do we lose our Santa?
I think so.
All right. So
Meg and Jeg.
So want to show the cake? Should we show the cake?
I think you might get Santa demonetized.
I know. I'm not going to do it. He took us away.
I think we're back.
All right.
I think we're back. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened exactly, but go ahead, Jason. I apparently it was me. No. My connection froze. You made a point. I assume everybody got it except me.
Everybody was clapping and saying like how good it was, and I was like, "Thank you." I'm like, I just always wanted Santa's approval and for Santa to hear it, and you did it.
No,
there, Daddy. Daddy, you weren't there. No.
having missed your salient points and the brilliant wisdom you shared with us.
I was trying to show the cake. I can't lie to you.
Do not show the cake.
No, I wouldn't show the cake on your stream.
No, the cake is very adult humor for those who are curious about the cake. It's not even.
It shows Santa's marzipan South Pole.
It's not showing it for a host of reasons. One, it's not appropriate. It's right.
Baymax, can you make me the picture of it? But with, from that featured image where Santa goes.
No.
Can you put that over the crotchets? Thank you. I would appreciate it if you're not busy.
Yeah, even in the not Santa safe, I think it's over the line. Like it's not.
Yeah, you have to.
It's not good.
Over it.
It's Dave Tree's going to do that. He said I could do that. Dave's going to take care of that.
It's something you'd find on elfhub.com.
Right, exactly. All right. So Cassian, is he the protagonist of the show?
I think he is, very clearly.
Yeah.
I could see where people say no because he's not a good guy. Right? He murders people.
No. We need to roll that back, because that's the whole thing. Is no one starts actualized. That's the whole point of a story. That's the whole point of getting from A to Z. Is you're one thing and then you're transformed by the end. So and you don't even have to. You don't even have to be good. You could actually go from good to bad, like Anakin Skywalker, and still do the hero's journey. So it's not a question of morality whatsoever.
Well, that's what I think from a protagonist antagonist point of view. A lot of people make a parallel. Protagonist means good guy. Antagonist means bad guy. But if you're watching a show that's based off of a villain, it's from a villain's perspective, you can be on the side of the villain as the protagonist of the show. Yeah. Exactly. As the protagonist of the show. An antagonist. So the protagonist is the person you're kind of rooting for, the person whose story is being told. Antagonist is the opposition, the barrier, the obstacle. In 100%. Simple terms, right? So there we go. So the second stage of the hero's journey is the call to adventure. Hero's adventure begins when he receives a call to action, such as direct threat to his safety, his family, his way of life, or to the peace of the community in which he lives. It may not be as dramatic as a gunshot, but simply a phone call or conversation, whatever the call is. And however it manifests itself, it ultimately disrupts the comfort of the hero's ordinary world and presents a challenge or quest that must be undertaken.
So like Luke Skywalker's is R2-D2 showing up with "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." And then now he has a call. He needs to answer it. You can come with me to Alderaan. Luke is like, no, I'm not. I'm going to refuse the call. But Cassian's call is Cassian's. I mean, is his call his long lost sister? Is Cassian's call when he fights the guys on? I mean, that's not actually a call when he fights the guys on the planet with the sex burgers, and then, but it does disrupt the community.
Well, it's when Cyril shows up and won't let things go, right? He's going to come and arrest him, and he's going to.
That's also not a call.
His day to day.
That isn't like he has to. Cassian has to be presented with the ability to say yes, and then for things to be on a path towards correct morality, right, or towards peace, and so that's where I'm a threat to his safety. See, like it could be like winter's coming, you know what I mean, in Game of Thrones, but I think with him, the call is actually Luthen, when Luthen goes to hire him, and the refusal of the call is when he doesn't actually go with the rebels and is just a mercenary.
Yeah, I would argue that episode 3 is 2, 3, and 4 here. So we see the threat to his safety, the threat to his community, his way of life is all disrupted when the Space Pinkertons show up and wreak havoc. And now it's runaway, and he meets Luthen, who says, "Hey, let's go." Right. So that was the call to adventure, and it's not truly until episode 4 so he ends up fleeing with Luthen just to survive. Right. In episode 4, Luthen's saying, I give you 3 options. 1, I drop you off someplace and you go on your way. 2, you join us, come on along. And 3, you could try to kill me and steal the ship. And Cassian clearly says, I'll take the drop me off, please.
And that's where step 3 comes into play, and the consequences occur.
That's right.
Of that. And with Luke Skywalker, R2 and 3PO show up, come and join us, come into Alderaan. He says no. Then The cosmic reality of the story comes into play. Stormtroopers come, burn your aunt and uncle, turn them into Crispies. Then now you got to go. Something's going to make you the God, the force, the whatever, however you, the mystical, whatever the forces at play in the universe are going to make the hero do that next step. So if you refuse the call, it's messy. Star Wars likes to have the refusal, right? I think Star Wars always has. No one ever just goes, "Here's the call. I'm going." It's good. It's always a refusal and then a mess.
Well, in the refusal, just so because we're talking about it, let's read what it says here. It says, although the hero may be eager to accept the quest, he wasn't, right? At this stage, you have fears that need overcoming, right? Cassian, right? Second thoughts or deep personal doubts whether he is up to the challenge. Right? He said, look, I already know how to steal things. I don't need your help. I'm good. Not interested.
Well, with Cassian, it's more like he's like, what are we gonna do? We can't do anything up. He doesn't think that they could actually challenge the system in any meaningful way. That's what his actual. I don't remember the exact line, but I remember seeing that and feeling like that was that moment when he's telling them like, this is irrelevant. It's kind of what he says. Like we don't, nothing matters. Kind of sort of a nihilist.
The comfort of home is far more attractive than the perilous road ahead. Right? I just go back to my old life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good, right? It would also be our own response and it helps us bond further with the hero, right? So he's just not interested in it. So I think episode 3, we see this call to adventure. Luthen meets him, says, "Hey, come do this thing." He's like, "No, just pay me. Give me money. We're good." He ends up having to run because the Space Pinkertons come. Episode 4, they have this big discussion in Luthen's ship. And he clearly refuses the call. Clearly refuses it. So this part happens. Stage 4, meeting the mentor, I think kind of happens out of order because it's stage 3, or it's episode 3. When he meets Luthen, and Luthen says, what's he say? Something to the effect of rule number 1, so on and so forth, right? And then rule number 2.
This kind of person will always teach the character how to fight. Like that's one of the things that kind of like in A New Hope. I'll just keep doing a little parallel real quick. Is that like Han Solo and Obi-Wan Kenobi both mentor Luke in that film? There's actually 2 mentors. Both of them teach him how to be a man, and that's kind of, and with Luthen, it's like the same thing. Cassian has skills, but he's not at that level. Not at the Luthen level.
It says, whatever the mentor provides the hero, it serves to dispel his doubts and fears and give him strength and courage to begin the quest. It says, I'll pay you lots of money to come do this heist. Right? That's the thing. That's the thing the mentor provides the hero. And again, I think this is Cassian is the hero we're following. That's my argument anyway. And says,
no, you're right. You're right. That's not up for debate. That Cassian is the protagonist and the hero of the thing. I mean, that's just giving credence to some whiner. There are other characters. It's a big show. It's a big narrative with a lot of time. But just because Mon Mothma goes and has a bad marriage in the episode doesn't mean he's not. That's just that would be a hard one to convince me of otherwise.
Yeah, Meg, are you still with us? Are you on board on the train, or we're full of?
I'm still here.
Well, I just mean, are you on the train with us, or you think we're full of nonsense?
I don't think it's full of nonsense. I just think there's not been enough yet to make this assumption. And I kind of feel as though if there were 5 seasons, we might be able to see that. Sorry, I just saw Dominic's comment.
I just saw yours. Okay. Well, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I don't think we make it through all 12 stages in season 1. We may in kind of a a prelude or what's the term I want? Foreshadowing kind of perspective. You get a little bit of some of the later stages, but to me, I think we only make it through about stage 5 and or 6. We make it through about stage 6 of 12. We're only about halfway there, in my opinion. And we can get into the other stages, and you guys can maybe help me see what I'm missing.
And like serialized things, it's a little bit weird. Like we could add this hero's journey thing to Little Red Riding Hood if we wanted to. So it's like but that's where I got problems with the concept of the monomyth being this all catch-all for all storytelling and shit like that, because it's so broad. Like you could shove everything into the model. That's sort of my problem with it. But
yeah, and Dawn is supporting what you said earlier. Like Andor is the Han Solo of Gilroy, right? Of the Disney era, right? So the next stage, just to get into where I think the bulk of the season is the crossing the threshold. Heroes ready to act upon the call to adventure and truly begins the quest. I think that happens in episodes 4 and 5, mainly 4, where he decides to join the Aldani heist. That's where he crosses the threshold. He says, okay, tell me about this heist, and they land, and of course he gets involved. Whether it be physical, spiritual, or emotional, he may go willingly, or he may be pushed, or bribed, or paid, right? Either way, he finally crosses between the world he's familiar with and which he's not, right? So he's stepping into this team. He's the newcomer. This thing's been planned, and he's got to come up to speed, figure out where he is. He does have the skills to augment the team, but he's not part of the team yet. So it may be moving home.
You can see the difference. Like if you take Han Solo and Luthen, they're familiar with the world, all of this stuff. None of it's new to them. They're completely already in that space. In this instance, Cassian is not. Luke Skywalker, not.
Right. So I think again, episode 4, we see him cross the threshold, and that begins the Aldani hunt. Why can't I say that? Heist.
Aldani,
right?
Heist. Yeah.
I'm just getting tongue twisted on it.
Like in Phantom Menace, it's little Anakin when he's decided to leave his mom and he takes those little steps. Lucas was very deliberate in that in Phantom Menace to show that for Anakin.
Very good. Very good. Meg is absolutely brilliant in the chat, you guys. And please, the only way you can participate in a chat is if you are subscribed to the channel. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to give me money. You don't have to support us financially. But you do have to subscribe. That keeps the bots out. Plus, it helps the channel. You know?
Pay us. Pay us now.
No. You don't have to do that.
Negotiations.
But if you want to, we'll be very happy to have you join our Patreon, in which you can ask questions. I do have a Patreon point that came during the last live stream I did that I didn't get to from Astromech Jeremy. So we could do that.
I have a question.
What do you want, Jake?
Will there be cake?
No cake. No cake for you. Definitely no cake on the live stream. No. So tests and enemies, stage 6. Now finally out of his comfort zone, the hero is confronted with an ever more difficult series of challenges that test him in a variety of ways. I think the Aldani heist, followed by the imprisonment and what he goes through there, fulfills this. Obstacles are thrown across his path.
What about the training on Aldani itself?
Yes.
I mean, and you know what I mean? What he's going through with everybody and marching and all of that jazz also kind of goes in with the tests and the allies and enemies. I mean, it's all there too.
All of it.
Well,
all of it. I think the remainder of the series, and maybe this is one of the complaints a lot of people have had, is that it spends too much time working through the process, and the show is too slow. We're talking about episode 4 of 12 when it starts, and we see then the bulk of the season is this test allies and enemies, stage 6. I don't see, at least me, you guys can help me out maybe, his approach to the inmost cave. Now, we clearly see this with Luke Skywalker. I mean, it's a literal cave, right? That's very clear. I don't see where Cassian goes to. It says the hero's journey. It could be an actual location, right? Luke Skywalker.
The vault on Aldhani.
A terrible danger, inner conflict, which he has had to face. As the hero approaches the cave, he must make final preparations before taking that final leap to the great unknown.
It's the heist. They don't know all of the ins and outs of the heist. There's a lot of ambiguity there. He's getting mad at his friends for not having covered all of the angles. Like I said, I'm not a big monomyth guy because I think you could make anything fit into it. But I think the actual vault and the heist itself is the cave. And he goes into the cave and they bring out treasure. It's
okay. I see what you're saying. To me, I don't see him fulfilling
it's the anticipating ultimate test. It's the escalation of the tension of his ultimate
facing
test.
his own insecurities. The only time I really see that is almost at the very end, when he decides to go back to Ferrix and save Bix and that. Like, maybe that's it for me. But even that doesn't seem like he's truly gone into an inmost cave. Maybe he did that when he was in prison.
Yeah. I think in this one, it's a little bit more shallow. It's not truly like he doesn't come out of the heist, but he does come out of the heist change though, because before he's like a little bit of a thief. He leaves that place an outlaw, a real one, not one who owes the local thug $60. It's a little bit different. I do think I would have to actually get out Campbell and look at this step in more depth to really see if it does, because based off of this breakdown of it, I'm not completely convinced, but I do think it's the vault. The vault on Aldhani is it, and the
Meg,
going through with it.
Do you think Cassian approached his inmost cave? Do you think that he went through this?
We're all scared, is what he says to Nemec. We're all remember.
I'm worried that when Andor was in prison, Kino went inside his innermost cave.
Ooh, they should have showed that.
Yeah.
I think so.
But in all seriousness, do you think that he did approach it? Do you think that he dealt with his innermost angst?
His fear?
I think so. Yeah,
fear.
definitely when Mother died.
Yeah.
I think it's a big turning point.
I agree. I think that would be the closest for me when I see that, because up till then he was just telling Marva, hey, let's go away, take the money we've got, and just live in peace. Right? Let's just hide away. And he figures out that that's not the case. That can't happen. And now he's got to face what it is that's holding him back from fully committing. To me, that feels closer to it. But still, maybe I'm still too stuck in the Luke Skywalker going into the literal cave, or Rey going into the literal cave. Like, maybe I'm too stuck on that.
Yeah, I feel like the approach to the cave is that day before the heist, and then the ordeal is the heist. I think for Cassian's journey, I don't think we go that far. I don't think we jump ahead in it. That's kind of what I'm seeing.
Excellent.
When you say Rafe's cave scene, do you mean when she starts clicking? And then
yes.
there's one of her.
The mirrors. Yes.
Oh yeah, that was definitely as impactful as The Empire Strikes Back.
The belly
I hope
of the
the
whale.
sarcasm travels.
I know. I follow it. I'm like, do I let Meg derail me this much, or do I just let it go?
I wasn't trying to rail you, Santa.
Oh my goodness. I've missed you guys. Take a couple days off for Thanksgiving. Here we are. Stage 8, the ordeal. Does Cassian actually reach stage 8 in season 1? It says the supreme ordeal may be a dangerous physical test or deep inner crisis that the hero must face in order to survive, or for the world in which the hero lives to continue to exist. I think in the prison, this is very clear. He's like, look, I'm going to leave dead or I'm going to leave dead. There's one way out. And then, of course, they go forward. Like he kind of already said, this is a dangerous test. And he actually survives it.
Can I see step 5 really quickly? Sorry to be that guy.
5.
Can we go up a little bit and just 5? 5 is crossing the threshold. Yeah. See, like all of this stuff is all happening concurrently, in my opinion. But the thing about it is I think he goes deeper, and I think that 5 is crossing the threshold. But that's oftentimes Campbell will call it the belly of the whale. That's where like Jonah goes and gets trapped in the whale kind of story, and that right there is going to happen to Cassian in the prison, though. I would argue that the prison is in the belly. The whale is the Empire itself. He's in the belly, and he needs to spring himself out. And I think all of this stuff is concluded with the escape in terms of this narrative from the prison. And I think that you can see the vault into the prison as all being inside the depth of the Empire, the heart of the Empire, the belly of the. I think that's what the story is doing in totality. So once again, is it a monomyth? I don't know. I'm not qualified to say, but it does seem to all of these things are kind of overlapping a little bit.
Yeah. So, only through some form of death can the hero be reborn, right? Again, that to me is in the prison. It's like I'm going to either die here or die trying to get out. But at least if I die trying to get out,
I'm already dead. They're all
right.
saying that. They're all saying I'm already dead. That's it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You identified it, Santa. You found it. You got the bounty. You got the ultimate bounty.
Look at that. Before the discussion, I was trapped back on 6. I couldn't get past 6 in the season. So it's a good discussion. 9, seizing the sword. Again, Meg, shh. I know what you're thinking.
Well, now I am.
Is the sword is I know this one might be more subtle though, because in one part, seizing the sword after defeating the enemy, surviving death, and finally overcoming the greatest personal challenge, the hero is ultimately transformed into a new state, emerging from battle as a stronger person and often with a prize. Is the prize Nemec's manifesto? I'm curious as to what constitutes the seizing of the sword in this one, because it might be intellectual and not actually.
Well, again, I'll refer back to Meg's video today, right? The significance of that manifesto and seeing it in Rogue One, right? He's always had that thing on his, on his outfit, strapped to his shoulder, but until now it was never explained. What is that book you're carrying around? Now we know what it is. And it affects him. It's
something else entirely.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was going to be Bix's raspberry shortcake, but no.
That's in my own fan fiction. That's mine.
It's an object of great importance or power, a secret or greater knowledge or insight,
that would
or even reconciliation with a loved one or ally.
Exactly.
I think it's in this part, right?
Well, the reconciliation with a loved one or ally would come through the manifesto in the terms that his mother believes rebellion is the answer and that it's time to stand up and fight and that you can't run. He runs. He thinks you can run. You can go to the beach. She's like, you can't go anywhere. It's everywhere. It's all around us. So he does it. We see the reconciliation coming a mile away. He doesn't, which is fine. but they do end up through Nemec and through the discourse of the rebels. They do reconcile. They do come to the same page that we're going to do this thing. We're going to fight these fools. So, yeah, I could see. Once again, I think you could make the monomyth work for anything, though.
Well, again, I get what you're saying. Like if you want to force it in there, I just don't know how easily it applies. To me, it seems very easy to attach these points to the season that we saw, and some of the complaints that, and I'm doing this partially to address some of the complaints that we've seen from detractors of Andor, right? There are a lot of people who say, well, it didn't feel Star Wars to me. We don't have an antagonist. He's not even the true antagonist or the protagonist of the story. The story's not really about him. It just kind of happens around him. All these kind of things, right? And hey, super chat from Astromech Jeremy. I'll get to that in just 1 second. Yes, and I agree. I think the manifesto is the sword, and that's yet to come in season 2.
Well, and Astromech Jeremy is bringing up kind of an important thing that I think probably needs to get moved out of the way a little bit here, just for the general understanding of the conversation. He says, Astromech Jeremy, I think the manifesto is the sword, and that is yet to come in season 2. And that's like the thing with like the hero's journey itself is like with Luke Skywalker, you could take A New Hope and just have a complete hero's journey. Then you could also take the trilogy and reconfigure it. And once again, it kind of goes micro and macro. And so I think that because the model's so open, you can do it.
Well, but, I think we go back to what your discussion was about the Phantom Menace and being Padme, and Meg's point about, well, the prequels is clearly about Anakin. Both can be true. Both can absolutely be true. And like I love it when
those points do go to both Anakin and Padme in the general story. They both do have their own monomyth structure.
Yeah, I agree, and I actually love it when you have multi-layered storytelling. That it's not just laid out in single dimension, where you have one character's just walking through. Where you can layer it in the prequels. Again, I'm not a huge prequels fan. Everybody knows that, but when you can see it layered and carrying through the story, that adds dimension and interest for me, right? In Andor, it's doing the same. It adds interest, dimension, and I think that there's a strong argument that Andor is the protagonist of the story, and that he is going through the hero's journey. That's sort of just me saying, like, I think there's more to this than a lot of people are taking time to look at. I don't know. It's me.
Yeah.
Stage 10.
Stage 10.
The road back. This stage, a hero represents a reverse echo to the call to adventure hero had to cross. So now he must return home with his reward, but this time the anticipation of danger is replaced with that of acclaim and perhaps vindication, absolution, or exoneration. Now we see this in the Lord of the Rings when the hobbits return home on the horses to acclaim and redemption. Like, this is a big deal when they return back home to the Shire. I don't know that we see Andor come back in that sense.
We do. No, this is where Andor comes back and with the money for well, see, it's kind of a little out of, but he does come home with the money for Bix to give to everybody before it all hits the fan, and that's sort of his exoneration, but it doesn't necessarily happen in this order, does it? So it says, but the hero's journey is not yet over, and he may still need one last push back into the ordinary world. The moment before the hero finally commits to the last stage of his journey may be a moment in which he must choose between his own personal objective Santa Claus.
I'm back.
Sorry.
We're back. Sorry. It was me again. Sorry. What you were saying?
Well, on that step is, I don't when he returns with the money, which is before prison though. And that's when I kind of think that that is when he does sort of have his vindication to his community, that he's not you know, a dreg. He's not a bum. And he pays Brasso and everybody off and gives that money to Biggs. And she's even like, she's kind of side glancing him in those moments too. So, and he does still need that one more push. But what's sort of weird is that I think he goes back into the belly again. The belly of the well, he's back in it because he's still refusing the call. In this, he's still, even through this, is still at a stage of refusal and is pushed back in. And it's not until he's out of that belly of the well that he actually is answering the call. So it's road back is a little bit of a harder one, I think, to make work.
Yeah,
but
I do too.
It does though. But it's harder.
Meg, do you think he's made the road back?
I think we're giving these writers too much credit. This is all very like we're trying to fit this structure, but that's not how they make these shows. I think they just, you know what I mean? Like the story structure isn't based on this type of literature structure. I think it's more, does it serve the story? So I don't really see it connecting to these kind of things.
I think Gilroy is cognizant of which phase he's in with his characters, but I also think I wouldn't say like writes it freeform like jazz or something like that, but I do think he does not go, well, that's phase is done, now we're here, which is what like Dave Filoni would do. He doesn't do that. Things linger. Things kind of like phase into each other as opposed to being now we're in a whole new part now. It doesn't do that. So
I think the story is not complete yet. Mm-hmm. And I've been able to come along to this point, but I don't think he has completed the road back. We've not seen him come back.
But if this is a New Hope though. Well, no, but he does though. He does come back with and with vindication. He comes back with the money. He goes out into the world and he comes back with here's the money I owe you fools. He does do it. It does count. It's not good. It's not a good. It doesn't fit into it. It's not boldly it, but it is. It does. I think it does count. I mean,
perhaps as a pretext to it.
But in the terms of this season, if it is a monomyth, we should be able to apply every single step of the monomyth to the season and then to the series. Just like Luke Skywalker, we could look at it from A New Hope, and then we could look at it from Empire, Jedi. I mean, Empire, A New Hope, Empire, and Jedi. We could do it like that too, and with the bigger beats. You know what I mean? So there's I think this one we should be able to if it is. But is it? I mean, I'm still not. I'm convincing you that fits, but I'm not convinced this is a monomyth.
I'm not convinced that we've reached stage 10. I think that may happen in season 2 to fulfill it.
We look at stage 10 again. Sorry.
Yeah. First of all, Star Wars Dog, another super chat. Thank you so much. He's been a while gone for a while. Not into the spoiler culture anymore. Also, go Dogs. I assume you mean Georgia. Ranked number 1. And just for clarification, Dog, this is not my team. This team up here beat my team, and I'm having to do this in protest because I made this.
That is your team. That's why you have it on your background, because you love it so much.
I don't love it. I don't. This is all Dominic's fault.
I remember you saying, I love Star Wars Meg. She's like one of my best friends, so I'm going to like Michigan because M is my new favorite letter. You said there's only 26 letters and M was your favorite one. I thought that was weird, but I went with
lies. Deception. It's all fake. No. Step 10 again. Step 10. It must
the road. Says, yeah, I mean, he does go back. He goes back home
with his reward, quite literally, right?
Yeah, he does do it.
And it says, but the hero's journey is not over yet, and he may still need one last push back into the ordinary world. So he does go back before the moment before the hero finally commits to the last stage of his journey, may be a moment in which he must choose between his personal objective and that of a higher cause.
And he runs to the beach. He goes to the beach. He takes his personal objective rather than the higher cause.
Okay.
And he ends up in prison where resurrection, back to the belly, where resurrection will happen.
So this talked me into it, not you.
Okay. Good. Good. Hey.
I had to, pick. We're friends. This is what friends do.
Hey, it's
stage 11.
I wouldn't listen to me either, personally.
Resurrection. This is Meg's favorite part. It's the climax.
It's a favorite alien movie.
Yeah, she loves that part. Where the hero must have a final, most dangerous encounter with death. So is that the finale?
This is the prison.
This is the prison. Yeah, the final battle. Well, it says the final battle. We're not there yet. I think that doesn't happen maybe till Rogue One.
Well,
this
we have
Harry Potter-ish.
We have two final battles though. We have the final battle of the prison, and we have the final battle on Ferrix. And so the climax in which the hero must have his final and most dangerous encounter with death. And now so Cassian has two. I would say that they're of equal importance. So I'm going to say that in terms of, I think that you have a lot of factors playing into these beats coming into actualization for the character in Andor. It gives you more than one.
And Mike Porter, I need USC to lose so that my team gets back in. That's what I need. But anyway, sports ball.
Is anybody following the World Cup?
I am. The U.S. needs to get some points today.
I think you guys will probably beat Iran, but England will demolish Wales, and Bespin Bulletin will be very sad.
Mm-hmm. I know everything about the World Cup from him while we're playing Fortnite. He just tells me about it, and I'm like, all right, go USA or Wales, cool.
Well, I was quite surprised that the U.S. managed to tie England as 0-0. That was a stunning victory as far as I'm concerned.
Game.
The belly of the whales.
Anyway,
it was a good result for America for sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a big result for the U.S. team because I expected them to lose, and the tie at least keeps us in the hunt. So if we can put some points on Iran, so that we get enough to stay in the group to move forward, that'd be great. Mm-hmm. That'd be great.
And there's your hero's journey.
There you go. There you go. The battle also represents something far greater than the hero's own existence, with its outcome having far-reaching consequences to his ordinary world and the lives of those he left behind. I think Ferrix is.
I'm going to say that the actual battle in that prison for Cassian and Ferrix, all of that is his battle. It's two events, two different histories, and all that kind of stuff if it was real. But for the character, this is all the same fight. This is the same battle for him.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think it's, like it could be a whole world war if it had to be. In this instance, though, I think from the prison to Ferrix, I'm going to say constitutes the in terms of the model, the same fight. And like you could, the consequence. Look at Gollum when he leaves that place. That guy's different. Like he takes that guy through the ringer from being completely beat into being like, hey, one way out.
Well, so. I think there's only one question really to your point. Is Luthen a good goalkeeper?
Well, so Planet Fitness is purposely picking on Meg. I've seen him doing this throughout the show.
He calls it soccer, it's football.
Yeah.
We created the sport,
at any sport. Just England is a dominating world power when it comes to the football. Yeah.
But we're good at eating. We're good at moaning that the bus is late. We're good at tutting at the rain.
Faking injuries.
And a good old cup of tea.
Faking injuries.
That's funny when you guys do that. When the sport does that. Oh, somebody just like, what?
Not as bad as the Italians or the Spaniards, though. They're the worst.
I don't know how they sleep at night. That
Well,
would be embarrassing. Like, you're just cheating, man, and you're dumb.
Dominic says I'm a huge fan of American culture. I actually am. I mean, I wouldn't like Star Wars if I didn't. I do love America. That's why I'm so sad for you guys.
All the time. All the time.
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. Step 12, return with the elixir. It's the final stage of the hero's journey in which he returns home to his ordinary world, a changed man. He will have grown as a person, learned many things, faced many terrible dangers, and even death, but now looks forward to the start of a new life. His return may bring fresh hope to those he left behind, a direct solution to their problems, or perhaps a new perspective for everyone to consider.
Rebellion.
The final reward he obtains may be literal or metaphoric, could be cause for celebration, self-realization, into strife, whatever it represents. Three things: change, success, and proof of his journey.
It's all
Did
there.
you get that?
Oh yeah, we do. We get that when he goes back to Ferrix. We get that, and the proof of his journey is when he's on Luthen's ship, and he's like, "You could kill me," and he's there. I mean, that's not the same guy who was all about surviving and getting paid. He's literally inverted by that point.
Yeah. The final sentence here: ultimately, the hero will return to where he started, literally Ferrix. But
Yeah.
things will clearly never be the same again.
Mhm.
That's 100% the case, right?
Mhm.
So, look, my point was that we do have a hero's journey in type, if not, precision. There is a type of hero's journey that Cassian completes. I came into the discussion thinking he was halfway through the path, but he has made it all the way. Yes, I do have a Discord, Jedi Mike. I don't think we have a bot set up to play it, but we do have folks in the chat with permission to post. We have mods in the chat that can post our link to Discord. Not only that, but it is in the description of of all my videos. I have the link to Discord, Patreon, and to become a member of the channel on YouTube. So all of those are there in the description if you want to find them there. Hero's Journey. One of the things that Star Wars fans from the very beginning have been, I'm going to say this wrong, tottering on about, right? Is that the correct use of the term, Meg?
No, it's tutting.
And what does it mean?
It's like the British equivalent of an eyeball roll. Like,
Oh.
and you're just like, yeah.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I can't really do it on the spot because you can't really see my face, and 90% of it is in the mouth feel, in the movement, in the
Okay.
the mouth feel.
Yeah, I got you. I get sort of like the one gymnast for the U.S. several years ago when she got silver medal and she had to stand on the podium, not get gold. She kind of did the whole thing with her face. Maybe that. if you know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
Hero's Journey. After the discussion, any mind say changed? Anybody still think that it is or isn't, and or doesn't fulfill or fit the hero's journey? Are we trying too hard to put a square peg in a round hole? What's the case?
Yeah, like I was saying, I think that that model allows you to put myths that really have very little to do with each other and with completely different meanings into it and act like there's this universal hard-coded element of our DNA that makes us only like these kinds of stories and that kind of stuff. And so I'm not even just really even convinced about Joseph Campbell's work itself. I'm not saying it's not valid that he wasted his life or something like that. I'm not saying it didn't give a structure to make Star Wars, but it's that deeper thesis that it's like it's innate and it's in everything, and it can't, because we could come up with examples of stories though where it doesn't have it, where you really can't make, like I don't really think Marty McFly necessarily fits the monomyth and the hero's journey, yet it's a blockbuster film, yet it's a huge story, it's a that resonates. So Star Wars though does tend to try to fall into it. Star Wars does try to help its audience understand a character through it, because we understand it, because Star Wars literally set us up to consume stories in this way and in that kind of format. But in like I said, you could do it in Little Red Riding Hood, you could do it in A New Hope in under 2 hours. You can, and in terms of these series, you could do it over the course of 12 episodes. And but I would I don't, but I'm kind of with Meg in the sense that I don't think I don't think Gilroy and his team necessarily set out to do a monomyth story like in that way. I think it would be much cleaner if that was the intent. But it does still checkbox it all. I mean, we could checkbox it all into it, right? I mean, I think we did.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think we had to push too hard to get it to fit in there. And I hear you. I hear what you're saying, Jason, is that this hero's journey, the monomyth, Joseph Campbell's 12 stages of the hero's journey, is so ambiguous or flexible that you can make it fit almost anything, and that it's not a rigid kind of outline that a hero has to go through in a very particular way that makes it unique. And
everybody knows the structure, and no one makes Star Wars. Lord George Lucas did. So it's like, that's the other thing about it. People are like, well, it made Star Wars, man. It helped make Star Wars. Like, whoa, but
yeah.
Like I said, I have a cynicism about it that I can't shake. I'm still working through it. I can't completely articulate exactly why I know that to some extent there's a little bit of bullshit at play with it.
Well, people will say that about George Lucas even borrowing the story of Star Wars, right? Mm-hmm. That he stole it. I know.
Well, yeah. I mean, he definitely was aware of Campbell. People argue about when he read it and stuff like that. There's a lot of holes in it. I think he may have embraced it a whole lot harder once he started getting accolades for Star Wars and people started to make the connection and he became friends with Campbell. That I definitely think is the case.
That's what I was doing, 100%. Yeah.
But when you look at the actual like the stages are always there. The edit of Star Wars changes drastically though. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I've never actually done is like looked at like the quote lost cut, the first cut of Star Wars, the early cuts, and how much of it really like fits into the structure in that point, and how much of the editing itself of Star Wars helped it, if any. I don't know. I've never looked at it in that way, but yeah.
I'm okay with using it as a structure and then, seeing how it applies to different movies. It's a great way of analyzing a story's or a character's development even. There's been a lot of criticism. Trust me, I read tons of it about Rey from the sequels not really fulfilling a hero's journey. They shortcutted it. They didn't fulfill it.
No, it does that 100%. Anybody who says that is wrong. That's just a lot of. They just don't know what they're. It doesn't mean it's good,
right?
Just because you follow the monomyth doesn't mean it's good. So, but to say it doesn't follow it, that's not correct.
Well, I agree with you. I just don't want to go too far off. I hear the criticism plenty, and I've heard the criticism of Cassian, and now it seems appropriate time to talk about Cassian in season 1 of Andor. in from the perspective of the hero's journey, and saying, I do think there's a way to look at it where he is completing the hero's journey in the season, where it does follow that outline, and whether it seems natural or not to you is going to depend on your own watching or enjoyment of the show. And to deny that it's there, I think is maybe being too particular in how to view it. But if you don't see it, you don't see it. There's no way to say you must see it. That's not what I'm arguing for. Saying that there is a way to see it, that it does happen. And if that helps you enjoy the show,
just not listening at a certain point, though. That's the whole thing. Like there's tons of movies that use it that I hate. Just because it meets every doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah.
That's where the conversation, I think, takes a crazy turn that doesn't make sense to me.
So we have we have a Patreon, and I have a question where I always ask. These are questions that we address on live streams, so you don't have to do a super chat. I love it; helps the channel a ton. But the super chats are fantastic. If you are of a means to do that, that's wonderful, and I appreciate the super chats we've received today. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for that. But for other folks, if you want to support us for as little as $1 a month, you can join us on Patreon, and you can post questions like Richard and Astromech Jeremy. I didn't get to this in the last live stream, but it still applies. We're talking about Andor, and Astromech Jeremy asked, do folks feel like Tony Gilroy's Andor is, in a way, protected from ever having to merge with other styles of Star Wars shows? Meaning, after Rogue One, that style and flavor of Star Wars show or movie ends there. I ask because I'm imagining a project that would include characters from all the new Disney Plus Star Wars shows, ones that make sense timeline-wise, and I'm thinking there will need to be some bridging together of styles to make that gel. No? Like, imagine 3PO and Leia having a scene with Mon Mothma or Cassian having to visit Jabba's palace in season 2. Does it work yet? Yikes. I think there's a style of storytelling when you talk about, is it space western? Is it an action adventure? Is it a fantasy fiction? Is it space wizards and so on? Where the styles don't necessarily, if we're talking about the style of storytelling, the style doesn't have to merge, but the story itself should bridge together.
Yeah, the story should, but to go with this greater point or his greater question. I'm going to use A New Hope as a model again. Go watch A New Hope the movie and then read the comic book. It's the same, but it's different. It changes. So your character's hopes, wants, dreams, and ideas should stay the same. But when they enter into that new story, whether it be a comic book or a TV show, then it's bound by the rules of that story and that narrative. Like you could say Jabba the Hutt's Tatooine and Luke Skywalker's A New Hope Tatooine aren't the same thing. They don't really necessarily, they're not really very cohesive. The character as they move through is the same. So Mon Mothma is not going to start, she's not going to start a band and start, or like a rap and roll band. It ain't going to happen. That's not Mon Mothma. That's not her thing. But the actual characterizations are the one things that I think carry through. So I think what he's getting at more is tone, and that's I think the key is that the tone will just be different for every single thing, because every filmmaker is going to have their own tone and spirit.
I have a third proposition for Jeremy.
Yeah.
A Star Wars movie set at the end of the Mandoverse that incorporates Mon Mothma and the New Republic and some of the characters we've seen, and it doesn't even have to be in the style of Mando or Andor, just a cinematic end of the kind of endgame style Mandoverse film with all of the characters that are left. And that way you don't tread on the toes of any of the shows.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Absolutely love it. That would be great.
But Mon Mothma won't have to won't have to be. She won't like when Mon Mothma walks on screen. It won't be like Andor. We're not going to see her like looking at her accounts and stuff. Like it's going to be completely like, you know what I mean? It would, like if it was a Filoni thing, it would be the character, but it would just have a different. It's a different tone. I
And
think
different
that's-
It
energy.
depends because I think
Yeah.
I think Andor does look very cinematic, and if
Mhm.
they really throw a big budget at this film, it won't even feel like The Mandalorian when Mando shows up. It can be its own thing.
Mhm.
Maybe it shares some of the themes with Andor, visually speaking, but I'd love for it to be like its own separate project. So then it's like a coming together of all of these characters at a much later period.
Yeah.
Because I definitely think Genevieve O'Reilly can be aged up to look like Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And
That's
if
great.
I had one hope for that character, it would be that she makes that big error in the New Republic era that leads to the First Order. I would love to see a little bit of the thinking behind that at play here about why she would move in that direction in this show, because she's such a central character. But
Will Morgan cracking me up. That's not. It's like saying not everybody is killed by their spouse, but are they? You just lose the will to live. Yeah. I just.
yeah.
Will.
Well, see, one of the big thing that exists about the monomyth, one of the larger critiques is that the examples Campbell pulls from are myths that were allowed to survive. He says otherwise, but they are compatible with current power structures or with dominant power structures over large amounts of time, which is why those myths were allowed to permeate and to change, but still exist. Because there have been myths that have been crushed out, that have been like that didn't survive, and that they don't fit his structure. And so, that there's a lot more at play than it's in our DNA. I mean, that's what Campbell is essentially saying. It's in our DNA. And it's
Right.
Is it though? Because we have a big problem trying to take this structure over to China. The problems because its ideas of what mythology is and theirs aren't compatible. So how do we answer that? I don't know. I'm sure there's scholars that are spend their whole lives on that question, but I don't know what the answer is.
Well, it's like I was talking about earlier. You could take the alchemy story, literary structure, to tell a hero's journey as well that doesn't fit the Campbell's model precisely.
Yeah.
I mean, again, as you kind of mentioned, it's kind of squishy enough that anything can fit in, but does it truly align to that? Or to Meg's point, was the author or the writer even intentioning it in their story, or is it just part of a natural kind of storytelling that the monomyth, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, can be applied to it so generically that it just sort of does?
The hero's journey really sounds more like Harry Potter than something Tony Gilroy would do. It's probably something J.K. Rowling had in mind rather than Gilroy's style of constructing a story. He plans it out, of course, but it doesn't fit this model. And the whole time we were going through it, I was just thinking of Harry Potter.
Well, and I think JKR really put in the alchemy story. Each book really follows the stages of alchemy perfectly, and so it's a direct correlation. She's clearly using that as her outline, but I think that the hero's journey again applies so generically to anything that you could make it fit.
The simpler the story, the simpler to fit it into the model.
Yeah.
And
that goes to the comment we had earlier. I think Jeremy made it like it fits better to a 2-hour movie, right? Like it's one succinct story, beginning, middle, end, boom, you're done. Right? When you start to have a more complex story that's told through a longer arc with more detail, more nuance, then it gets a little more difficult for people to see because you're just not moving through the stages in a linear fashion as quickly or succinctly as you would otherwise.
I got mono from Will Morgan.
You know, it's a thing. It's a thing. Hey, Star Wars Unlimited made it. Good to see you again. Season 1 of Andor was really well was done really well amongst many of the characters. Great writing, great dialogue, great cinematic scenes. Music was great as well. Can't wait for season 2. I think a lot of people share that enthusiasm. Star Wars Unlimited. I think the three of us would probably agree. Jason, you agree?
Yeah, it's probably my
Meg,
favorite thing they've ever done.
Meg, I know you're very positive on Andor.
Yeah, I love Andor more than any of the other shows so far, apart from maybe The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I got this Jedi mic. Thank you so much for it. No question, just extremely grateful. Thank you so much. It's great to spend time talking to you when we get the chance as well. So thanks for that comment. All right, anything else before we call it a day? I'm ready to go eat lunch.
Yeah, let's eat. Let's eat cake.
Cake. Look, you had to go there again. It's yeah. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me. It's good to be back and talking Star Wars again. And it's again, I go back to where I started the show. We can have fun. We can poke fun at each other. Bricks and screws, whatever. Everybody's got a bad take. Everybody said something at one point that was taken out of context, and we're having
yeah,
fun.
about that. There's a made-up story about a field.
No. It's not a made-up story. We have documented evidence.
I saw it in Willow. I was watching Willow the other day. I saw it. There was some wet grass over there.
The embargo lifts tomorrow.
Yes.
So you can talk about what you want tomorrow, Jason.
I know. I'm ready. I made one video already. I'm gonna make.
Yeah.
I think the embargo is for the first 2 episodes, so I think I'll have 2 videos out tomorrow night or late tonight.
And just for my own clarification, are they releasing just one episode tomorrow, or okay, they're releasing both? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. So I only have to wait a week to catch up because I've already seen 1 and 2, and Jason's seen 1 and 7. Well, 1 to 7.
1 to 7, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Santa.
Thank you, Xana.
And Jason, or Jag.
Thank you. Thank you, Meg.
Yes. You guys, if you missed Meg's video today, be sure to catch it. There's a couple of really, really good discussions in that video, and I tried to highlight them throughout the show today. But Meg, is so appreciative of your friendship and being part of this community and spending part of your day talking with us as well.
Likewise.
So you guys,
likewise, Santa.
Thank you. And I'll let you guys go, and we will talk to you next time. And thank you all for being here today. I hope you have a wonderful day and do something kind. All right, have fun and enjoy your day. And I can't wait to talk to you next time. Until then, my friends, Merry Christmas, and may the Force be with you always. Bye-bye.
Hot dang! Talking through the news from a galaxy far away. Toys and book reviews, positivity all the way. Come and join the fun, subscribe and like away. Movie news and show reviews, it's like Christmas every day.